Hello, BookTube. Well, it's the 1st of June at last, and among many other things, that means the launch of a whole bunch of BookTube events, BookTube reading events. So much fun. So much fun coming in June, coming all summer, actually. Uh, the BookTube event I want to talk about in this video, I'm going to make a string of announcement, reminder, stock taking type videos today before I dig into the meat of these things. Two of the four events that I'm talking about today in videos extend all summer, and two do not. So the focus will be shifted a little bit different. The weight will be a little bit different. But the one I want to talk about today is June on the Range, which a lot of people have been looking forward to more than any other BookTube event. It was created by Michael K Vaughan a few years ago. It's designed to celebrate Western novels, which once upon a time were the thing in genre fiction. They outsold anything except romance. They were really, really popular, and they aren't anymore. Sales figures for genre fiction are not what they used to be just across the board, but Westerns have disappeared almost completely. They're an entirely tiny little niche now. And if you'd said that to somebody 60 years ago, they would have thought you were crazy. They would have said, whatever else is going to change in the book publishing world, that won't change. You'll still be able to make a buck selling Western novels. That's not true anymore. And June on the Range is designed to take us back to the heyday of when that was true. When thousands and thousands of Western novels were being churned out left, right, and center by all kinds of writers. Some had real talent. Some were just going for a hot, good thing while they could. A check that wouldn't bounce. I have been examining these. I've read Westerns my whole life, but I've only bore down and studied them, actually made a concerted effort to read a lot of them because of June on the Range. I think that's true for a lot of you. That's why this event is so beloved. And I'll be doing that again this June. I'll be overdosing. I'll be overdoing things, as I always do with BookTube events that I love. I'll be overdoing things this June. But not in this video. In this video, I want to talk about what it is that we're reading in June on the Range. Springboarding from a terrific video that Michael K. Vaughan made on his channel. I'll leave a link to it if I remember to do that, but I imagine that everyone watches his channel. It's fantastic. Of course, he's the creator of June on the Range, and he did a video today talking about some of the problems with the Western genre. Some of the big problems with it. Some of the problems that are almost unavoidable when you read it, if you read Westerns for the month of June. They're big problems. They've been on my mind too. And I want to echo that video and open this discussion to the people who watch this channel and maybe don't watch that channel to find out what you think of it as well. There are a number of problems that you can think of right off the top of your head when it comes to old-style Western novels. It's not true for a lot of them, as I'll be getting to. I think it's not true for most of them. But the number one problem, the one thing that is absolutely synonymous with Westerns, the one thing without which you cannot have a Western, is guns. Guns make Westerns. Guns are the law in Westerns. Far, far more than they are in crime novels, for instance. Even police procedurals. There are police procedurals, plenty of them are written 70 years ago, where the main character, investigator, the cop, the sergeant, the detective, doesn't carry a gun at any point. Never threatens anyone with a gun, is never threatened with a gun. But with Westerns, they're synonymous with guns. And you might not have noticed that, or you might not care, but a lot of readers reading Westerns in the 21st century, especially in the United States, won't be able to avoid the implications of the centrality of guns and gunfire, gun violence, because this is a country absolutely plagued by gun violence. If you visit here as a tourist, if you live here as a civilian, you have a huge likelihood of being shot or being caught in some act of gun violence. It's a gigantic likelihood. There are a number of the crazier slave states in the country that have no restrictions on gun ownership at all. None at all. If you say, I want a gun, you can have one. If you want to wear one out in public, you can. If you want to conceal one, so you bring a gigantic firearm into a crowded theater or a children's event of some kind, the law says you're fine. Anything you want to do with guns, we love it. Not with your body, not with your retirement benefits, not with your work safety programs, nothing like that. But with guns, anything that you want. You do not have a waiting period. You do not need to register. You do not need to have a good reason. Nothing like that. You can have as many as you want. at any time you want, anywhere you want. You can bring a gigantic gun to visit a sick relative of yours in a nursing home, in a hospital. There are plenty of states in the United States where that is the law, not the exception, where that is obviously legislature designed to cater to insane people. And there it is on the books. And it's never anything you can get your mind off of when you're living in the United States. There's a big rock concert that I'm thinking about going to. I've had tickets for months. All my friends are going. Can you completely forget that it may become a shooting range? No, you can't. A nightclub, especially some kind of minority representation nightclub? Is it a nightclub in a primarily black neighborhood? Is it a nightclub for gay people? No, you can't forget that this night out on the tiles might be your last. A sporting event? A political rally? Certification of votes? No, you can't forget it ever in the United States anymore. Not ever. That at anywhere you go in public could be the last place you go in public because of gun violence. That's going to cast a shadow over the Westerns that we're reading in June. A little bit of a shadow. You're not going to be able to avoid it anyway, whether it casts a shadow or not. You're not going to be able to avoid the fact that guns are the rule in these books. There are no exceptions. But there are others. There are other dark parts. Mike touches on a few of them in his video. Another major thing, another major dark side that is often treated darkly in these novels is what the 21st century sloganeering part of social media refers to as colonialism. The fact that the Western genre is spurred by westward expansion and doesn't exist without it. The minute, the time period before there is Western expansion, you don't have Westerns. And the time period after there's Western expansion, you don't have Westerns. You might have Western-themed books afterwards, but you don't have actual Westerns, the type we're reading this month. What you need is Western expansion, where you are traveling through states, then through the mountain areas, then through territories, and then into the wilderness, then into countries that, into country, space, land, that is ruled or passed through or claimed by Native American tribes, Native American confederacies, but not your own at all. So you are in alien territory. And again, guns on all sides, violence on all sides. The standard narrative in the 21st century is that the United States is built on colonial aggression, that the white settlers just continued to move west in wave after wave after wave, attacking, annihilating, infecting, and also displacing all of the native peoples everywhere, from Florida to the Great Lakes and from the Appalachians all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Displace, dispossess, pen, exterminate them. All of the native peoples that were there before you got there. That is the 20th century narrative here, and it has all sorts of variations even among people who are not terminally online. We're having a fantastic discussion unfolding in the June on the Range Voxer group on this subject, of what that is, the subject of what are the two simplistic ways to think about that. Of course, those Native American tribes and confederacies were conducting nonstop, ceaseless warfare on each other and had been for thousands of years before a white man ever saw them. So the simplistic view that is actually required reading at Rutgers University, an Ivy League university in the United States, says that before white people, all of the black people in Africa were indulging in physics experiments and interlibrary loans and completely peaceful, idyllic existence, not only with each other, but with lions and snakes and elephants. It was completely peaceful until the aberration that is white people showed up. And those same weirdos, those same SJW weirdos, map that same narrative onto American history and say that Native American peoples were not only at one with each other, but at one with nature for the millennia before white people showed up. Of course, that's not true. We know that's not true. But nevertheless, you run against the grain of that kind of thinking when you pick up any of the Western novels that you'll be picking up in June. Ordinarily, the bulk of the Western novels that we will read in June on the Range, any of us will read on June on the Range, will be a conflict between white people. But the backdrop will be that they are taking over someone else's land. Sometimes that's at the forefront, but a lot of times not. I've been remarking the whole of my life to anybody who was trapped in a room with me that the American childhood game of cowboys and Indians, which of course you're not allowed to play it anymore. Once upon a time, it was absolutely de rigueur. It was the only thing that any of us played was cowboys and Indians. And I was saying for a long time, just out of childhood, I started saying, well, if this were in any way accurate, it would be cowboys and cowboys. It'd be cowboys fighting cowboys. But it is still a prominent thing. That element of how Indians, as they are always referred to in Western novels that we'll be reading, how they are portrayed is an active element. Now, I believe I've read a lot of Westerns because of June on the Range, a lot of them. And over a wide span of time, I've read some from the 1930s, the 1940s, plenty in the 1950s, a slot load in the 1950s. I've read a lot of them, and I've been paying attention to the threads that I've been seeing, these kinds of threads. I have found that on the whole, Western novelists are far more sensitive to that subject than they are typically given credit. I think that when you're looking at the kind of stereotypical, stupid, drunken, savage portrayal of Native Americans that we're talking about here, I think you look to pop culture, not books, for that. I think the Western serials, the old serial movies, a lot of the old movies, a lot of the old TV shows, I think they're more to blame than the books, at least the books that I've read. Maybe there's a whole substrata of books that I'm just not seeing. But it's an issue, and it will come up as when you're reading these books. No matter how well disposed you are to reading them, it's an issue that will come up. Another issue that will come up is sexism. Of course, these are men's books. There is no such thing as a female main character. There's certainly no such thing as an effective female main character. She might have a lot of space, a real estate on the page, but she can't do anything. She can't affect the plot at all. She's a plaything of the men, either evil men or good men. And also she will be the trophy or the reward to the hero. There's no way around that. There's no way that you can dig into Western novels and find exceptions to that. I don't know of any exceptions to that. If they exist, there'll be two of them. Out of literally 200,000 books, there'll be two of them. So that's another thing that you just have to look for. And there's another thing, of course. What we're talking about here has a horrible name in the 21st century. I hate it. I hate all the abuses that have been done in its name. But the name is representation. You shouldn't go to fiction to see yourself. So I hate most of the people who brandish the word representation like a club. You shouldn't go to fiction to see yourself. If you do, you are reading wrong. Nevertheless, the representation that exists in the standard run-of-the-mill 25-cent Western novel is abysmal. I don't think the representation of Native Americans is all that abysmal in most of the novels that I've read for June on the Range. It can be bad. But I don't see it as universally bad at all. But oh my God, the representation of women, yes, it's virtually non-existent representation of non-masculine men. I'm not even saying gay men, just non-masculine men, is pretty bad, and also black men, and especially not Native Americans, not First Nations people, but Mexicans. Oh my God. Oh God. I think that when people talk about, Western novels, they're so racist against Native Americans, I think the thing they're really thinking of is how racist they are against Mexicans. Oh my God. It's horrific. That I did notice. That is almost universal. And the reason I'm chuckling is one of the subjects that's been coming up in that Voxer discussion that's ongoing. And it proves that I'm in with the right group of people. That is just great to have a discussion like that, because we're having all sorts of disagreements about all sorts of aspects of these subjects. But the reason I'm chuckling is not because these aren't serious subjects. It's because this is not a serious event, right? Michael K Vaughan would be the first word to say, this event is meant for fun. Any of you who watch his channel and love it know that the video that he made today is atypical. Mostly he's concerned with the fun of reading. So am I, for that matter. Despite how much I read about serial killers for money, or the Ottomans, or the Habsburgs for money, I'm still largely in this for fun. Certainly I'm in June on the Range for fun. And I want to know, based on his video and on this video, I want to know what those of you who are in June on the Range, I know a lot of you have been looking forward to this, and you're not dumb. You're all experienced readers, avid, experienced, lifelong readers. You know these issues exist in the old Western novels that we're reading. I want to know how you deal with them. It isn't possible that you can be picking and choosing the ones that don't do some of these things, because they all do these things. I know that, and yet I have found some that I have really, really enjoyed. I'm hoping I find a lot more in it that I will really enjoy in June. We're going into this kind of writing knowing this. How do you deal with that? You know you're going to encounter it, and I think you're determined to read around it, right? To enjoy what you can, even though those elements are there. Taking, I assume, a lot of those elements as just products of their time, rather than the virulently expressed bigotries of the particular author. Don't we do that? We do that, right? With canonical works of literature. We do that all the time. You have to have that filter in place when you're reading these things, or you'll just won't read them. Right? That's what I'm asking you. When you watch Mike's video and then you listen to this video, what do you think of all this? You'll have your guard up just a little. You'll know that you're going to encounter some of these ugly aspects of this genre. You read anyway. Yes, you're looking forward to June on the Range anyway. I would love to hear about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this subject. I want to stress here, though, a point that Mike implied it, but he doesn't stress it overly in his video. I want to stress that all of your hosts know of these things, right? We all know that these things are... This is not a blind, naive celebration of the Western as a genre, is what I'm trying to say. This is not a blind, naive thing. All of my videos from this point out are going to be purely for fun. And I would hope that all the other hosts will make videos purely for fun. This is a fun event. All I wanted to do in this video is second what Michael K Vaughan was saying in his video, which is that these issues are there, and we aren't ignoring them. We are aware that they're there. I think the overriding philosophy of June on the Range is that we can enjoy these books anyway. I'm hoping that you think the same way. The last thing I want is for June on the Range to become a somber event. so let's talk about these events in the comments field, and of course you're free to email me. And now that we've talked about it, these things are in these books. There's no way to avoid them. There's almost no way to find a Western that doesn't have at least some of them. Now that we've talked about this, and we know they're out there, of course none of us agree with any of the crudities. And I could have gone on. Notice I exercised enormous self-restraint to not talk about the extermination of the buffalo and the beaver. I did not talk about that. I'm only talking about humans here. And the wolf. And the coyote. These things were shot recreationally by the hundreds of thousands. Now that we acknowledge that all those things are there, and we've had it out in the open, the founder of the event has had it out in the open, surely we can all agree that we can now go on and have fun for June on the Range. We're not endorsing anything. We're not endorsing anything here. We're just having fun with these books. I'm hoping. That's what I'm going to do. And I brought a lot of you along last time and the year before that, hoping we do that again. Just want to clear the air, get this out in the open. I thought Mike's idea to make a video right at the beginning of the event was inspired. A great idea. I want to do the same thing. I will be noting these elements when I talk about the books that I read this month. I'll be noting them, of course. But I'm not going to let it govern the event. That's what blue-haired, blue-checkmark killjoys online tend to do. Tend to say, not only are these things there, but I want to get rid of the joy that anything hosting them once had. As far as I'm concerned, the only joy that you could get rid of would be the joy that was endorsing those things in order to make you happy. And I've read almost no Western novels that did that. Almost none. That endorse these things in order to make you happy. The closest the Western novels that I've read come to endorsing something that's horrible is the whole idea of the woman in the story being a Cupid doll, a prize. And even that, I don't encounter that nearly as much as the stereotype says that I should. Maybe I just haven't read enough Westerns, but that's the point of this video. It went over long. The point of this video is to assure you this is not a naive event. All of your co-hosts are extremely experienced readers. We all are aware, just as you are, that these elements are present in these books. I would like to ask that we enjoy June on the Range to the hilt anyway. So that's what I'm going to proceed to do starting tomorrow. So I will wrap this up for now, and I will see you then. Feel free, though, tell me all that you think about it. You know how nosy I am when it comes to stuff like this. This is exactly what I would sit down and talk to you about if you were here. So feel free to let me know what you think on the subject. But I'd like to think, I'm hoping that I'm not going to hear from any of you that you're ruling out June on the range because of these events. I would hope not. Anyway, I've gone on too long. I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.